when we launched SpecFive, our goal was that we wanted to build technologies of freedom. And I've been writing about technologies of freedom for a long time. It is all those things that allow you as a human being, as a free American, as a free person on this earth, to own and control the tools that will make your life better. Those are the technologies of freedom. Now, if we look at what we use computers, we use communications, we use power, we use manufactured goods. So in all these areas, my wife Zabe and I decided, we literally sat down after we got done with our last major company, and we decided that we will invest in decentralized things that people own. We want to do decentralized manufacturing because all the big politicians talk about how they're going to bring back the supply chain and manufacturing to America. And all of it is this $10 trillion deal here, and 4 years later we discover it never happened, because those are things done at scale, which there's so many variables around. What about my view of an American garage, an American street in a middle-class neighborhood when I was growing up, where on a Saturday or a Sunday you had open garages, and there was, John there working on his carpentry project, and you had David in the next garage working, and he's got his engine open up and he's trying to, upgrade his 65 Mustang. And you've got the next guy over there with ham equipment coming out the wazoo, and there was a great propensity towards the use of technology to make this country better and to make humanity better. That was a real thing. And we have lost that thing. So we can try to fix it at the level of government policies. We can try to fix it at the level of, political agitation. Or as an engineer, I can offer you a different path, which is ignore and just do. When grassroots movements take over, when you start doing things with your hands, when you start making change in the world in small groups, this is the history of the world. That's always where change comes from. So SpecFive is not just about printing devices and designing boards and putting some firmware on them and shipping them from a website. What SpecFive is about is user-owned decentralized communications, meaning that nobody can come to you and say, you paid me for the device, but now you can't use it. Nobody can come to you and say, everything you do on this device will go through Jeff Bezos's data center. You can't do that. Or that the computing that you do, sure, you can be the serf that presses the keys on the device, but every intellectual property that you create will be part of Anthropic and ChatGPT and Google. ChatGPT made an announcement last week that by default, everyone is turned on to providing their data for model training. LinkedIn made the announcement that by default, everything you've ever said on LinkedIn is now going to be used to train LinkedIn AI. So if you had a unique voice, that unique voice will also be taken by big tech. And if you forgot about it, if you didn't see it, the default is your voice is theirs. No please, no thank you. Now, if you think about kind of how important technology is really, really important. Most jobs are connected with technology. Most of what we want to change in the world is related to technology and infrastructure, so we can't let this go. And I'm not going to spend too much more time. My purpose here is not to talk dogma and philosophy, but I do want to tell you that when you look at SpecFive, what you're looking at is not just the current revision of devices on that table. What you're looking at when you see SpecFive, is something bigger that we're trying to build. And we're desperately trying to create community that will allow us to do that. So with that said, I hopefully I have explained my mission. And our technology, we sell to you, you own it, we don't listen in, and you do with it whatever you want to do as a free woman or a man. That's it. There's no changing of like, now I'm retaining all your messages for the last 5 years. That's not going to happen. So, what did we do in our first year? Now, everybody's telling us, you can't build a company in America. Oh, tariffs. Oh, manufacturing costs. Oh, supply chains. Blah, blah, blah. It's hard to build a company in America, that's true, but it's not impossible. And those same tools that we have been talking about here, you know, I don't want to sidetrack, but this whole idea of Industry 4.0, rapid prototyping technologies, additive manufacturing, being able to bring in, you know, digital design, being able to test systems without building them first, circuit design analysis, all these tools, it's not that they didn't exist previously, they just existed at a much higher price point. And so now we've been able to access all these technologies and make a viable company that's selling real product to thousands of people. So what did we do? Well, in the first year, we were able to design a large number of products, and many of those products did really well. We shipped last year, we shipped already to 2,000 customers. And we didn't expect that, starting, not even having a full year. And many of those customers, by the way, we don't have a briefcase carrying, tie wearing sales guy knocking on people's doors like an enterprise sales guy saying, hey, you know, let me roll out the red carpet for you and let's wine and dine and let me tell you about my products. That's not how we sell. We sell on the internet based on what people say about our products. And we sell based on reviews. And we get up there in front of a camera and show what our devices can do. And if people like it, if we hit the right community, we generate sales. That's what we do. So that's how these 2,000 customers were acquired. And you know, a lot of you, I can see, you might have a small business, you might have thought about a small business, you might have somebody in your family that has a small business. I'm sharing all of this with you because it's important for Americans to get back into what made this country great, which is innovation at the grassroots level. And figuring out ways in which we can make things work, even though this company has basically become a monopoly-driven nation with 3 companies controlling all communication, 4 companies controlling all of computing, and you go down the list, right? So can we do better? Maybe in SpecFive, aside from all the mesh stuff, there's also a little glimmer of a hope that, yes, you can do a technology company and anyone can do it, which to me is really exciting. So I'll go a little faster now. The 2025, what we were able to do is that, remember I said 2,000 in the first year, 11 months. We were able to triple that, more than triple that, and the year hasn't ended. Our marketing team has been absolutely tremendous. They've really been able to help us find the right communities, send the right messages. We've got a lot of stuff wrong. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've learned from those mistakes. We've put them back in. But the biggest thing that I'll tell you, which is a huge learning, and it's not something that you don't know, it's just that it needs to be in your face before you react to it in a productive way, which is speed. Speed matters for a lot. Like when you make a mistake, don't get caught up in the mistake. Don't like rue the mistake. Don't cry about the mistake. Just change it and move on. And that lets you really iterate towards the truth very quickly. So we then started getting, you know, multiple US military customers, many counties. Daniel team went out and did some large deployments for important, disaster condition monitoring. We expanded our portfolio to 20+ devices. How we do this is in itself an Industry 4.0 best practice. Because if you think about it, if any one of you have been involved in manufacturing, it's impossible to do with a team of 20 people. You can't do more SKUs than you have people in a company. And the way that we do that is a learning itself. What we also did earlier this year, is we got into computing. And why? We got into computing because we think ultimately we want to give people devices that solve the big problem. What's the big problem? The big problem is freedom. What does that mean? What that means is I should be able to store stuff on my own device. I should be able to communicate on my own network. I should be able to encrypt and store and be guaranteed that anything I have is mine. I should be able to take from the airwaves all the free content that the government of the United States has sanctioned for me to be free. For example, all the radio content. I want to easily get that, categorize that, store it. Why should I be paying for it? I'm already paying taxes for it. Why do I have to pay Spotify again for what I can easily and freely get over the air? How can we build devices that allow people to benefit from all the aspects of digital freedom that they can exercise? I want to run an app, and I don't want to pay a big data center X amount of money and then give them all my data. Can I run those apps on my device? How can I make more resilient networks? How can I keep my text messages out of AT&T and Verizon? How can I do that? These are real things. These are real bits of value. And where was this device that I was playing with? You know, what I've been talking to the team is like, ultimately, we want devices this size. This is the new Spectre that'll just be coming out. Look at this device. It's tiny. It's super cheap. When I say super cheap, it's a full Android phone. It can do cellular. It does LoRa. It has tons of storage because it's got expandable storage. It'll run all our Meshtastic games, all Android apps, blah, blah, blah. It also has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. But you know, the cool thing about this is it's cheap enough to be throwaway. It's that cheap. It's not a $2,000 iPhone. And you can do more with it with much greater freedom than you can on those platforms. And it's pretty small. It fits straight into your pocket. And if you do nothing else, and if you say, like, I'm nervous about, I have an iPhone still. I'm hoping to get rid of the damn thing. But I do still have an iPhone. And I want to move. We've also now got a partnership with a telco that has a prepaid program with us. So in other words, there's no monthly fees. You get the thing, you get X amount of data, then after a year, if you want to renew, you can renew. And you get more data, and that data can be used for voice over IP communications. So it's kind of like the James Bond of pocket radio devices, right? You've got basically all the things, Bluetooth, LoRa, Wi-Fi, cellular, the whole 9 yards with full Android apps. And it's nice. It's cheap. You pay us once and it's yours. That's it. Simple. Done. Right now, the mesh is really young. If you think about what the mesh is being used for, it's being used to message between me and you and maybe 8 of us, 12 of us in a group. So it's just at that lowest layer of the network that the mesh has been built. But all the exciting stuff is yet to come. Now, I'll presage this a little bit. In 2024, SpecFive launched some games. They were the first games ever for Meshtastic. People looked at these games and they said, well, but these are simple games, like chess, checkers, tic-tac-toe. This year, we've got 2 more fun games like gorillas, if you've ever seen those gorillas trying to, throw bananas at each other, and you got to set the range and you got to set the angle. But they're more graphical. But the point was not that you would spend your life playing chess on Meshtastic. The point was that you can do this. The underlying text layer isn't the only thing. You can build cool applications on top. That's what Tim Berners-Lee discovered when he built the web on top of, TCP/IP. So there is the potential to do rich apps on Meshtastic or on MESHCON or on HyperMesh, these low bandwidth protocols. And so we have kind of learned that lesson, and you'll see what we're doing. One thing that we have found, which maybe some of our ham friends can help us, there's a lot of feedback that we get on like, oh, this thing is a toy. LoRa, it's a toy. It's 900 megahertz, it's a toy. My setup with my big, huge, extender and my network of friends that have me repair, I can do, 100 miles, and I've spoken to. And I think we're talking at kind of like cross purposes, because with the point about a mesh is it's low power, but there's a high level of community involvement. So we build a cell-like network where people repeat each other. It's not about like range envy, how, my range is bigger than your range. It's really more about how many of us are in it and how many of us can build a community. So that is a very simple one, but in general, each community will have its unique take, but we've got to carry them all forward. We've got to integrate them, and really, I don't know how many of you were involved with the internet, like in the very early 90s, but it feels like that. It's pre-web. The bulletin boards, the communities, the chat groups, which only a few people knew about, that excitement I feel in the community now. So last year, we also spoke about SpecFive investing in a satellite. And we said that, look, we can put the MEHSCON protocol up on a satellite, and it wouldn't be perfect, but it would allow us to relay messages all over the world, and we would have a global network that would let us do that. So we very diligently went out and contacted a large number of satellite launch companies, and we got 2 full detailed proposals from 2 separate companies. And here's what we learned. What we learned was that we could probably scrounge the money, afford the launch of a satellite. That wasn't going to stop us. We would use a CubeSat to do this. CubeSats are small, standardized satellites, and there are many launch companies that will support this. But all the problems that we got into were details relative to the MEHSCON protocol. For example, one big problem is that when you update the MEHSCON firmware, everything gets updated. The price of pushing all those bits, the size of a MEHSCON firmware, up to a satellite, you cannot do. It's just not doable. The high-speed links that you would need would be extremely expensive. They would break the economics of the project. So then you would have to rewrite that firmware, and then there's no authentication. So anybody could try to connect and use your capacity to forward those messages on. MEHSCON also naturally is more chatty than you want in a protocol that's up in space, trying to conserve as much bandwidth as possible. So in other words, what we've learned this year is that satellites are doable, but that we will have to create some community interest in a protocol that's much lighter weight, that could act as a router in space, maybe for more than one protocol. It would just be at the base level of LoRa. It would get messages, really keep it tight in terms of the protocol, and then forward those messages down with some basic auth. So that's what we've learned. We have, again, 2 hard proposals. We know the rough monies involved. Just from a satellite operations perspective, these LEO satellites, they're in low Earth orbit. So one of the problems of being in low Earth orbit is that the Earth is pulling you towards it, and over time, as you lose speed, you start to decline. You start to, the orbit pulls you closer towards Earth, and in about 2 years, a rough estimate, changes with parameters, in about 2 years, the satellite dies. So you would have to constantly invest in multiple satellites every 2 years to get this going, which says economically, totally doable. It's just how much value can we deliver with the mesh? If people are running tons of applications, if farming communities are using this for IoT, if we've got warehouse operations using these devices for tracking, if there's a consumer crowd tracking their pets, we've got a device that does that, or their animals, livestock. If there's enough, then yeah, we can support it. But if we do it now, it's going to be probably not the best use of money. Yeah. But I just thought that I owed you guys an update because we spoke about it. Now, this is my last slide, but I want to tell you in a nutshell what we'll be doing. Obviously, I didn't want to get too detailed with the roadmap because, frankly, things will change. There's some things that are still being worked. But there's three big areas that we're interested in for next year, okay? And you'll see all of this stuff come out. One is network scale and technology. Everything to do with the network. How do you invest in growing the network? You might think this is, partnerships with groups like Freedom Link, which has been a tremendous partner and has deployed dozens of our nodes and has expanded coverage. Devices that provide even easier expansion. How can we make it super simple? You get the thing out of the box, you stick it up, put it up on your roof, do something, and bam, done, nothing else to do. So really simple ways to expand the network. Invest in growing the network is really a multidimensional thing. It's really about shows and participation and education, and it's a lot more than just devices. You'll see today that we have begun a dialogue now with UT Austin. You'll see two of their top CS professors that are thinking about how their cutting-edge work in cloud routing AI protocols can apply to the mesh. Because my conversations with them have been, we want to eke out every little bit of value from the bandwidth that we have. So when you think in those terms, there's a lot of protocol sophistication that doesn't exist in the mesh community that these guys can bring. Computing at the edge, differential transport, compression techniques, routing techniques, things that really make the mesh really, really efficient. So what does that practically mean? You can support a larger number of people. You can have greater surety that your messages will get through, so better reliability, and you'll be able to run better types of applications. Right? That's what we all want. So that underlying engineering and this partnership, we've started 2 partnerships with UT Austin and 1 with Southwestern. You'll see some evidence of that later on today. And then, of course, advancing our own hypermesh protocol where we're implementing all of the lessons learned. And then Daniel spoke about this, but we're with everyone. In other words, we want the mesh to work. We're not, sadly, there's always in these open source projects, there's always a little bit of like, this is mine and I'm better than you. And look, maybe everybody's better than us and maybe everybody's better than everybody. We don't even want to get into it. We want to just support everything. And we just want to have a multi-protocol platform. We are interested in building the platform. And if that means every now and then people will be like, those guys suck because they didn't take my protocol, it's fine. That's okay. That's the history of open source adoption and platforms over the years. Totally fine. But that's kind of what we want to do with the network. There's a lot of very tangible things. Daniel's going out and installing a lot of our relays in county offices, central county offices. Freedom Link is scaling our nodes across a large area. We're working with UT Austin to figure out sites where we can deploy relays so the whole campus, 100,000 person community can be on the mesh. We're going to figure this out with Southwestern. A couple of the guys that work at the company are Southwestern. You'll have a professor from Southwestern that'll come in today. So this is all real, tangible stuff. It's not just like theoretically we hope one day we'll grow the network. Now, on software and applications, basically this doesn't exist. When I give you a mesh device, I'd like for you to be able to go into an app and look at a map that's all powered by mesh technology. I'd like for you to be able to play a game or 2 or 5 that are all powered by the mesh. I'd like for you to be able to look up information. I'd like for you to be able to access a bulletin board. I'd like for you to be able to get access to a server where you have some files and run a search on that. Maybe 6 of you combine such servers and it's a small decentralized search engine for a theme. I'd like for us to be able to manage multiple devices so that when you, in a hospital or in a fire station or wherever, you give many of these devices, I can have a little agent on here that allows the admin to manage all these devices, check the firmware version, check the battery level, so that these are what used to be called MDM, mobile device management. That's what allowed phones like iPhone and others to become successful in the enterprise. So you will see all of that coming from us. You'll see entertainment. We're even working with people on how do we make entertainment super compressed? How do we do new kinds of entertainment that's still funny, that's still engaging, that's still great, but can run on this constrained channel? So, there's a lot of things like that. And then on devices, I am super excited about the fact that we have now started designing and shipping our own motherboards from scratch. So this Strike device that you see here, complete our own board. And this allows us to do deep integration. There's no limit to now what we can do. I'll share it with this audience. There are probably half a dozen other boards that are currently in prototype stage. By prototype stage, I mean they are working. They are physical, actual boards that are working, but they're just not ship ready. And you will see that all of the componentry that you will need, not just for the devices of the class that exists today, but future devices that will do a lot more fun stuff, will all be built with our components. And so there's also an embedded little operating system that combines all of these things together. That's doing really well. I'm very excited. In the next few months, you will see just so much stuff that you will not see from anywhere else. We started in February with mechanical designs and with this idea of integrating Meshtastic, making it easy. And then we started innovating and combining piece parts. And then we started designing our own boards. And then we started merging multiple types of devices. And now we're designing all our boards. And then we started writing our software. Then we started doing our games. And then we started working on our own protocol. And now we're working on our own Mesh OS. So just in 18 months. So I'm just so proud of the team and what they've done and the way in which we've built the company. You're going to see IoT integration. You are going to see a mesh server class device that can deal with a large number of clients and deliver a large number of services to those clients. And yeah, I spoke about custom boards. So that's like a little nutshell of what's coming, where we've been, lessons we've learned. Happy to take questions.